Chairman, first and foremost, obviously, relegation on anyone's CV is not what you want. How do you sort of react to the news of the last few days?
This is definitely not state-run media, because you've gone straight in there with a dagger. You know what I mean? Like, what is it? You've mentioned CV. You've mentioned C. Don't worry about that. You've mentioned CV. You've mentioned relegation. Yeah. You've clicked all boxes. What was the question? And again, ask any question you want, Phil. Like I said before we started the interview, completely honest, transparent, whatever you want. You've not been told to hold back in anything. Carry on again. Relegation, yes, it's happened. We're down. Next.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the important thing is that in the last 12, 13 games, there's been a bit of fight shown, because that's you don't want people to go out with a win.
No, I think I said it the other day. The biggest positive this season will be, number one, our fans. That's been the biggest positive. They've been brilliant all season. You know, at least they had the Man City game. That was one big thing for them. The second positive will probably be our academy, you know, the strides that's making. And apart from that, yeah, Grant coming in with his new team, and you can't really judge them, even under 13 games. Next season is when they get judged. And funny, I'm meeting him and his coaching staff in Barry after this. That's when the real judging, as we like to do around here, takes course. But other than what I've just mentioned there hasn't really been any highlights, has there? So, you know, obviously having fans back in stadiums, a big plus after the year we had no fans. But yeah, no, it's been a shit season. It's been shocking. It's been shit. It's been disappointing. It's been humbling. It's been hard. And with that comes criticism, questions, people asking you to apologise. I said it the other day, you know, in the famous words of another Irishman, you know, I just want to apologise to absolutely nobody, because at the end of the day, there's no guarantee of a promotion. There's no guarantee you're going to stay in a league. And unfortunately, in football, which is the wonderful thing about our pyramid, is it's a promotion and relegation game. And it might sound sick sometimes when you say, well, do you prefer middle of the table, or do you prefer some adventure or excitement? Well, when it comes to the championship, I guess it's middle of the table, you know. And when I say we, you know, particularly as owners, we did our best. We put our best foot forward. Was it good enough? In the end, no, because obviously we've been relegated. So the club has to dust itself off. But everyone's got to remember, it's not just put the players to the side here, because I was saying this earlier on, with all due respect to the players, you know, they're still going to be earning good salaries and doing all right for themselves financially, and they're going to bounce back. It's staff, it's people like yourselves, it's people around the club who have had pay bumps going up, and they're going to have pay cuts going down. And, you know, and shuffles and changes and things are going to happen, and it's the uncertainty of people's jobs and careers, and that's the horrible side. That's the dark side of a relegation, because there's no parachute money, because you're suddenly back down in a league with millions of pounds less in income, and you're faced with deficits and overheads and expenses. And yes, the players have got cuts in their contracts, but they're still well paid. So the real people I feel horrible for are the people behind the scenes of the club. You know, I feel for them and the fans. And yes, of course, you're going to feel sorry for yourself as an owner, because you've got to help pick up the pieces financially, right? So it's been, whilst it was great to win over the Easter weekend, you always felt, particularly with Reading scoring in the 95th minute and the same guy scoring in both 95th minutes, it was kind of like fate and God. When Jono hit the post against Luton a few weeks ago, and I was in my house in the States, you can ask my missus, my first words were, you want us back in League One. I was looking up above. I was just like, this, you know, we were battering Luton's goal, and it's just, this ain't happening. And it is too little too late. And that's great, you know, that the players have shown fight, you know, under a new manager, and shown fight towards the end of the season. But that's not really when we wanted them to do that, you know. The durability and the fight needed to come a lot earlier. So, yes, take positives in that, but, you know, hopefully it'll be a different story. I know it'll be a different story next season.
I think perception outside is it doesn't hurt you in relegation, which is a strange thing for people to assume, because regardless of whether you're an owner, an employee, whatever it does, a relegation hurts, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think anyone asking anything negative happening to the club, does it hurt you? Put my partners to the side. I can't speak for them. They can speak for themselves, and I'm seeing them in a few weeks in Vegas with the manager and Barry and the CEO to go through next season, you know. It hurts. Trust me, it hurts. It affects my life. I'm not talking financial, that's one side. Emotionally, you know, the baggage, every relegation you get on your CV, as you so elegantly put it at the start there, it just chips away at you a little bit more. It just chips. And this hurts massively, of course it does. And of course you feel like a failure. And of course you feel like you've let down fans, you've let down yourself, you've let down everyone. There's only so much one person can do. You can put your best foot forward. You can do your best work, you can put the time in. But ultimately, you don't put the shirt on, you don't go out and play, you don't score goals, you don't stop goals. And you're certainly not responsible for durability or injury issues. You know, so... And I guess everyone wants to probably have a dig at that, me saying about the injuries this season. But again, it's been a catastrophe the whole season, you know, in that regard. And even our players on loan are injured. Idris has got a fractured jaw. I believe Broomy did his groin for Plymouth the other night. Joe Tomlinson's out with an MCL. I mean, it's just, we've been cursed this season. I don't know whether or not that penalty for Sammy has just led to, you know, a curse on us with when it comes to not recruitment or anything else. I'm talking injuries, physicalness, everything else. We've just, you name it, it's happened this season. It's just been a catalogue of shit, you know, when it comes to that side of things.
And while we sort of talk about injuries, obviously people may or may not know that obviously Johnson, back in the last season against Lincoln, played with hardly a calf. I don't know how he ended up playing. He's obviously scored the winning or the equalising goal to get promoted. And naturally, the gap between the seasons was short.
Yeah.
And perhaps he and others didn't come back the way.
Yeah, the physicality in the championship's different level. You have to work twice as hard. And I remember saying it in the summer, and I have a document I put together in the summer based on that if you want to compete at a club our size, you have to be physically stronger than ever before. You have to be, to compete with players who are better than you technically, you have to be just as physically fit. And they're the inches that might help a club like us. And if you are not, then you're miles off it. And there's no doubt, Mum, we were miles off it. We were miles off it in August when it started. You could see that against Luton, and you were hoping, well, you can keep players fit, you can get them to that level. You got international breaks, but we just didn't work hard enough. And then you go down to the individual injuries, you know, right now today as a club. And people talk about, well, recruit players and bring more players in. But right now, you know, we've had all our goalkeepers injured. We've had our captain, you know, our only left-sided centre-half have 2 massive hamstring issues throughout the season. That's basically robbed him of the season. We've had our best left-backs from last year, you know, out. Harrison's even chipped the bone, so that's 2. You've had then Joe Tomlinson, obviously, we've had to put him up a lot quicker than we wanted to. He's now injured. If you go to right back, you got Thompson out. You got Joe Ward with a dead leg, who's also missed time this season. You got Benji, who was meant to be. It was a big part of our philosophy this year was we would have a squad and a core of strength, and behind it would be a young player from the academy. That's how we want to do it. That's why we're Cat 2. So for your butler, you have a Burrows. You know, for your strikers, you have a Ricky. You know, for at right back, the idea was Thompson, Ward, Benji. Benji's ripped 3 hamstrings this season in both legs. Thompson's out half of the season, you know, and Joe Ward, obviously, again, durability. Then you go to midfield, you know, and you got Norburn's missed the last 25% of the season. Jack Taylor's missed probably 35-40% of the season. You go to strikers, you want to get Marriott fit. He comes in, he's finally fit, and then he rips the hamstring off his bone. We can talk about Clark Harris and the condition he was in the summer. And again, players have to, every player in the squad, you know, and I'm not criticising, I'm just saying they have to look at themselves, and I'm sure it'll be different this summer as the current setup. But again, you just look at all of that, and then you've got people saying, well, you should have signed strikers. Yeah, but if you're playing fundamentally a lot of the time, which we told was going to happen this season, we're going to play like a 4-2-3-1, you're playing with one striker. So then you've got Clark Harris, Golden Boot winner last year, you've got Jack Marriott, you've got Ricky J. Jones, you've got a Dembele, and you've got a Schmodox, who's a secondary striker. So you're signing another one, you know, and people say, well, you brought a player in January. Yes, we did, because we thought we might lose one in January, Dembele, hence why we brought one in on loan. You just can't keep signing players to have 7 in a position. It doesn't work like that, regardless whether or not people are saying you should have known about Clark Harris, you should have known about Marriott. Well, Clark Harris played 50 games last year. You know, we expected him to pretty much play the same. I mean, I think he's missed 15 starts this season. So again, 30% of the league campaign, he hasn't been in the team or been fit to be in the team. All those things, and then obviously you can talk about your Randalls and players like that. It's just been a catalogue of errors, a catalogue of issues, a real learning curve. It's not the fundamental reason we got relegated. We weren't good enough. That's factual. But I said it the other day on my podcast that last year when we won promotion, you could pretty much guarantee you could name 9 out of the starting 11 every week. Every week. I think the only one was Joe Ward last year who missed a piece of the season, but you had Canu backing him up. And Joe still finished as leading assists and playmaker in the League One Team of the Year. But pretty much you could name the back line, you could name the midfield, with bar Jack missing 7 games, which cost us the title. You could name the strikers, you could name who played behind the strikers. It was the same team every fucking week. Excuse my language, Posh fans. You can beep that out. And this year, eyes don't tell lies. It's just not been there. It's not been available. So, if anything, forgetting about promotions, title tilts, I just want a fit squad next year for the football club.
Because actually, when you use that R word of recruitment, actually recruitment in itself, you look at Josh Knight, look at Jando Fuchs throughout the season as it's progressed, the other players that you've brought in.
Careful, because the fans are going to turn on you. Don't use the dreaded R word about recruitment.
But you look at the fundamentals of those players coming in.
Sure.
I think if you'd have said to any Posh fan at the start of the season, you're going to get Josh Knight back, there wasn't going to be much discrepancy with regards to that.
No. Look, you're there to be shot down. We've always had good recruitment at the football club. People have to look for excuses. I am self-critical. I will always say, not good enough. Could we have got better players? No. Did we try? Of course we did. But what we felt in the end we got was enough. And then year 2 was going to be an important year. And when you go through it for the future, for the club, Tomlinson's a terrific acquisition. Ask any Swindon fan. He was never for our squad this year. We felt with Butler, Burrows would be okay there. We felt Josh Knight was just a perfect complementary in there with all the centre-backs we had. We felt George Grant would be a real coup in this league, would really kick on in the right position. Fuchsy we wanted to sign last summer. I give credit to my young gem scouts for him. They were at me non-stop to sign him last summer, but we couldn't get the deal done, so we got him in January. Randall, obviously someone we've tracked for 18 months. Ask any Exeter fan. I know our fans like to write him off. Journalists are putting in the paper to move him on and everything else, but anyone who sees him, who knows, and honestly not enough people have seen him, there's a serious young player in there, and he's just had to go hand in hand with our season, a nightmare season. Very confident about him and Poku. We think they're going to be real posh flair players that our fans are going to really enjoy watching. And then obviously, have I missed anyone else in there? We forget the loan players. I'm talking about the players we signed. So, again, yes, could it have been better? Is there anywhere, could you sign 2? Someone said yesterday, came on here and I think it was on Twitter and said, well, you got the centre half that was at Derby, who went to Stoke in the end. He was on $5,000 a week, 6 grand. No, I believe he left Derby and went to another club for like 3 times that. That's why he left there. And by the way, with all due respect, no players choosing us over Derby. And Derby could sign those players they had in training, but they're not choosing us over Derby. I mean, we've got to get real sometimes as a club as well. When you're in the Championship, players can choose between you and Swansea or you and Cardiff and you and Birmingham. Or whatever. They're not choosing Peterborough United. That's just the way it is. And people will say, well, Luton got players signed. Yes, Luton are in year 3 of a project, and there's a lot more confidence with someone going there. And there's a lot of things happening at Luton that would say to a player, well, they're not going to go down. Your first year back in, people are like, they're going to go down. So you've got all that to deal with. Look, none of that worked out the way we wanted it to work out, but we were very happy with what we got. And we were very happy with what we got, which would be fulfilled next season, because just in case this did happen, they're the type of players that fit our club. And by the way, people want to buy 2 of those players already. So again, backs up. And if you look at some of the games and people say, yeah, but it's the end of the season. No, if you look at the 13 games under Grant, the competitiveness of the squad, actually, if he'd had a full season with them and the staff behind the scenes and the sports science and the fitness, would it have been a different season? Maybe.
Was the Dembele situation a difficult one to manage?
No, really easy. The manager wanted him gone. It was really easy. It was a distraction. He wasn't, with all due respect to him, he wanted to go. And you weigh it up like this. You got a player who has been offered this, and you got a player that he knows if you don't sell him, he's got 4 months left. He's the type of player that gets fouled a lot, which means he's going to get injured, and he's free in the summer. Do you really think he's going to put his body on the line in a relegation battle? With all due respect, he's not. So it was a really easy decision to make. We felt keeping him for 4 or 5 months would propel us to a certain position. Again, best laid plans. It didn't work out. We thought we'd be comfortable that when we did sell him, and we were going to forego, we were going to lose, we could have sold him for double the money in the summer. We thought, well, that 4 or 5 months we keep him is worth the money to basically get us up the league. And then in January, end of January, we got our eyes on a certain spot, we can sell him. So again, it didn't go to plan.
In terms of when Mark Robson left, was that a
Yes.
difficult time as well? Because, obviously it was down to the manager at the time to decide what he wanted to do in terms of his structure.
Yeah, I mean, I was disappointed with that, with Mark leaving when he did. But again, we're Peterborough United, not Manchester United, and we can only do what we can do. And someone wants, potentially a pay rise to stay at the end of the day. That came at a really bad time. So the manager wanted to promote from within. There's a lot of pressure on young Matty. And I'm not blaming young Matty. I'd said at the time to the manager, of course, it's great Matty's part of your coaching setup. Do you go after an experienced number 2? But no, look, I'm not questioning anything Darren did. He did it for the right reasons. He always had the club first and foremost in his heart. And I can never question someone who works in that way where they think it's of benefit to the football club. So, we can go through a list of reasons. The bottom line, not fit enough, not durable enough, not savvy enough, and not hard-working enough.
And come January, I guess in January you were always going to struggle to make an impact on a squad.
I didn't want to sign anyone, bar Fuchs. Fuchs was the deal we'd done since the summer. I didn't want to sign anyone. I wish I'd sold a player, but my manager felt like putting a flag in the sand over a certain player because of the way it came about. He was like, do not sell him. And I was like, and hindsight's a wonderful thing. Look, I'm not saying there weren't mistakes made on my part. I wish I'd been ruthless. I wasn't ruthless enough. Regards loans, I'm not a fan of loans. The only one probably I was really optimistic about was Reece because of what he'd done the year before. But it hasn't worked out. There's a good footballer in there in Reece, and he knew us, so it was an easy one because he knew us and he was comfortable how we played and everything else. And look, I feel bad for the rest of the lads that came in and haven't played or haven't really, but they have to play, put their hands up as well. Have they been at their best? Have they done what's needed? No. So that's the loan market. It's a horrible market to go into. And obviously we'd gone after the targets and they turned us down. They didn't want to come and battle, and it is what it is. Again, mistakes, and I guess they have to be learned from.
Yeah, and as I say, if you go into the second half of the season, obviously we had big games where we didn't get the results, and I guess always piles the pressure on at that point when they're big games.
Our home form screwed us. We were brilliant 2 years before. The 2 years during COVID, and then when we came back just before COVID and coming back after COVID, for 2 years we're one of the best home teams in the country. If you really want to finger point to our players and whatever else would be, our fans have filled up our stadium magnificently throughout the season, and we haven't done well enough at home. Our last home win was December, and we didn't win again at home until who did we beat recently at home? Blackburn.
Yeah.
What was that? 4.5 months. That's not good enough. That's for, I don't care what league you're in. For our players not to win at home in 4.5 months, unacceptable. So, 2 more wins in all that time. We're going into this weekend in a different frame of mind, right? So really our players have to look at themselves and go, well, you've had a year playing behind closed doors and you had a brilliant home record, and you've had a year with some tremendous support and you've got a terrible home record. That's on the players to turn that around.
There has been a lot of positives, because
Sure.
I know we've been speaking the last 10-15 minutes of things that could have gone differently, but
Sure.
you look at the impact of someone like a Ronnie. I know people accuse me of trying to flag him up and this, that and the other, but for someone of that age to play as many games as he has at that level...
Forget Ronnie. Ronnie's magnificent, we know that. But what about Harrison? Harrison's not left back. He's not a left wing back. He's played there the last 18 months, needs must, because he has a talent. He's a left-sided midfielder, or a 10. And he's finished the season, well, not finished yet, but he's got 5 assists and 3 league goals. So he's been involved in more goals than anyone in our team playing out of position. He's just turned 20. He's an academy product. So he has been, without doubt, one of our better players this year. So massive positive. Ronnie, massive positive. Fuchsy, big positive. Ricky, again, missing the start of the season. You've seen glimpses the last few months. If he'd had a full season, he'd be playing for the England under-20s by now. Who else in there? Some of the young players coming through. Poku, again, you can see it. There's talent in there. So, of course, there's been positives. Jack Marriott, when he's fit, scoring a goal every other game in a championship. Do you know what I mean? Jono looks like a championship striker. Strip £10 off him. Watch him in July if he's here, because obviously he's doing really well, and I think he now believes and sees that he can play in the championship. And we've always said this: get in condition, he could be a beast in the championship. So loads of positives in that way. Josh Knight's form since January. That's the player we wanted to sign. We just didn't see him until January properly, on the pitch. We have a shocking defensive record, but there's been some positives in there, which is tough to say. And then there's other ones where you just didn't see the best of them because of injuries and issues, and you thought, well, they're really going to do well in the champ, and I don't want to name names, you know who I'm talking about, and they just didn't because of injuries. They just weren't the full package, but doesn't mean they can't be because they're young enough. So yes, there's been positives. Like I said, the biggest positive for me has been the sport. Sport's been brilliant. It's horrified to see what happened against Forest, and the shambles that with Forest fans getting into the home end, particularly after we got rid of 300-400 of them before the game. Hopefully that won't happen again. And I'm seeing the gentleman and his daughter, I believe, next Saturday before the Blackpool game to apologise, and there's an apology I will be making. So it's tough for me to find positives in the season like what's happened, and you guys working at the club, I'm gutted for you. But like I said in my podcast, by the time Peterborough United plays League One, is it July the 31st or July the 30th? It will be a very competitive squad, and would be fancied to do very well under a manager who last won the League One title.
And you've already backed him in terms of the management structure around him. He's obviously got Cliff, he's got Dale, new physio been appointed. I think sports science is...
He's not cheap, our Grant, I tell you. He's picked up some expensive habits since he's left us.
But this is the thing people don't potentially realise outside of a football club, that if you are going to create the right environment, it comes at a cost. And obviously you've backed the manager to go and do that.
The financial gap next year is horrifying. But nothing we haven't dealt with before, nothing we won't deal with again. That's just the way of the business. And but the one thing is that this club's always competitive in that league, and they will be again, and trying to do something they've never done, which is win a league title. Grant's put together and assembled a very, very good team. And like I said, not cheap, but you pay for what you get, and there's quality there. And our 23s are in great hands, our academy's in great hands. There's going to be a lot of good things happening, and now we have to marry it up again like we did 18 months ago. We have to make sure the first team is doing what everything else is doing, and positive things have to happen on the field, and that just lifts everybody. So we've got the Cambridgeshire Derby, Northampton hopefully are back in town. So there's going to be some good games next season. There's going to be a few monsters, big clubs in League One, like there always has been in all the years we've won promotions, from Leicester to Leeds to Southampton to Brighton. Last year, Sunderland. There's always been massive clubs in the league. So, you try and find positives in that. There are positives. So, but unfortunately, you go back and you do the autopsy on the season, and it's not pretty. It's not a pretty autopsy, and that's unfortunately what I have to do.
Football's an incredible roller coaster, isn't it? We sat out there less than 12 months ago on the biggest high, after probably the biggest high you're never ever going to get above, given the circumstances. And then you hear, how on earth do you try and find a middle ground as an owner? Not
good for the mental health, is it? When you go through that, I think, and you're surrounded by pictures of last year, and it feels like yesterday. I said all setbacks lead to great comebacks. And life isn't a perfect drink, just isn't. It throws unexpected curveballs at you all the time. It blows up in your face. That's something I teach my kids all the time. Don't think that it's all plain sailing, because it's not. There's going to be bumps in the road. You're going to climb mountains, and you're going to think you've conquered the mountains, and then you're going to roll to the bottom of them again. And sometimes climbing back is tough, and climbing back again is tougher. Staying there is always the tough bit. So all you can do is get up and dust yourself off. Of course, I'm feeling, what would the right word be at the moment, raw about everything that's going on. I'm obviously taking it from all sides at the moment, which is fine. I said it before. You need a scapegoat, no probs. That'll be, maybe you change my car park title to that. And I've been here 15 years. I've always done my best by the football club. That's been my motto. Do no harm by the club. So I always do right by the club. And, and if sometimes that's not good enough, what can I say? Again, can't apologise, because I'm giving it my all. And again, here I am here in the UK. and I'm fighting, I'm doing meetings, I'm doing whatever, and I ain't seen my kids for a couple of weeks, and I'm missing some key times at the end of school years, and that has to stop because I've put my kids second to this football club for too long, and that's not going to happen anymore. So that changes now, because for me, family is more important than anything else. Just like the fans who come here, who come with their families, they're more important to them. But again, you know, it's sobering. Everything about the last, since probably February onwards, has been very sobering. You know, and even I throw in there winning against Millwall at Christmas, and then not being able to play some of the teams like Reading and Birmingham the following couple of weeks. I felt like it was the big man above, because I felt we would have won one if not both of those games. You know, at the time. Because
you talk there, everyone sees the perception of Darragh swinging with a rounder's bat, but once you go off Twitter, or you're not now on Twitter, you're still a person at the end.
Of course I am.
And that's potentially what people don't see, is the fact that, you know, you're probably going home to your family, your missus who's probably took it in the neck for the last 12 months, and you need that support nowhere.
Of course. And I've always tried to be the person who, win, lose or draw, go on social media. And I've always been like that. And it wasn't about losing this season. If you look at it from early on, I was like, okay, I'm going to do a video every week. And I'm not going to respond to results too much. I'll do it through the podcast. And then that brings out criticism. You can't win. What I've found is sometimes you can't win. If you're on there all the time and the team's winning, it's like, oh, it's only because you're winning. If you go on there when they're losing, people are like, shut up, you shouldn't speak like that. Chairman of a football club should never speak like that in social media. So it's kind of like, you just can't fucking win. You know, hopefully not now with my man Elon taking over Twitter, you can get rid of some of those gobshites that are on there. You know, flush the trolls out. But it is what it is, you know. It's like I always said, like, I've had a wonderful run. I've had 15 years of unbelievable support, unbelievable relationships with the local press. It's been really, really good. And there's been highs, there's been lows, but I always felt like I'm there for them, they're there for me. You know, I give them what they need. And I have felt a change with a certain fraction or a faction this season. So, I don't know. You know, I've always said when it gets to that point, you got to go, you know, you never want to outstay your welcome. And that's not a threat or whatever else. I still own the football club, or half of it. But you always have to, like, take things into, what's the right word? Context. Look at it, inspect it, and go, do you really want to go up that mountain again? You know, is that the hard yard you want to take and put everything into that again? You know, or do you let someone else do that? Is that time? So they're all the conversations you got to have, you know, and I'll go home and I'll have a break, and then we'll make that call. You know, am I still going to be here? Yes, but how involved? Do you know what I mean? So I feel I'm really good at what I do. If people don't agree, I don't respect that, I don't back to that. And that's based on years of body of evidence, not just 6 months, 2 months, 3 months. That's a long period of time. So to be told you're not very good at something and you should give that up when you yourself don't fundamentally believe that or agree, that's the one I have to marry up with. It's a tough one.
Yeah, it's a tough one, but one thing you could never accuse you of ever doing is hiding.
Ever.
If you look at some people who own football clubs might, you know, you can't hear from them for March.
No, yeah, of course.
You're always there to talk to.
No, I'm open. I straight after the relegation, I said to you, next week we'll do a video. You know, right now probably leave the fans. It's not the right time. You know, obviously I put a little thing out on social media. You know, obviously I responded to a couple of gobshites on Twitter, called out a few people as well that needed to be fucking dealt with. But no, I never shirk anything. You know, you want me. If the BBC want me, I'm there. Always am. If Alan Swan wanted to comment, ask him, I'm there. That's the type of person I am. Granted, I have to be on a Sky, got in touch with me on Sunday and wanted me on Sky on Sunday, and I was like, we got relegated 6 hours ago. Give me a fucking break, will you? This is like, give me a chance here, you know what I mean? Whatever else, you know. But also I felt, my fans don't want to see me on TV 6 hours after being relegated. Like, let it sink in. Everyone's hurting. Like, everyone's suffering. Let me do what I do best now, behind the scenes, and try and piece it all back together. Let me try and motivate people. Let me try and get people going again. You know, whilst at the same time, I need someone to get me going again, and I'm on my own in a house in England. So give me a chance. Do you know what I mean? Like, to catch up here. You know, people want to write your obituary in your sports career 12 hours after a relegation. It's like, give me a chance to breathe here. Like, can we just have a little minute? But like, no, unfortunately. And I guess that's the price you pay for owning a football club. And people say, well, you take the plaudits. And okay, fine. You're absolutely right. Take the plaudits. About plaudits. I care about success and I care about failure, not in a positive way. If it's a failure, how do you respond to the failure? If it's success, how do you get more success? It's not about, eating it up and saying, oh, look how wonderful and great I am. It means feeling like that doesn't pay your bills. Being successful constantly pays your bills and makes your bills appear smaller because you're doing better financially. So for me, it's taking the failures and basically ring fencing them, learning from them and moving on. People say, yeah, but 8 years ago you got right. The championship now, and you will have seen this yourself, is a completely different animal to 8 years ago. It's not the same. The championship's Premier League 2. It's a different league. 8 years ago, half the clubs in our league had been Premier League clubs. This time, every club bar us, I believe, had been in the Premier League. It's a different league. And coming off COVID, and people really aren't giving us, I'm not asking for loads of slack, but the lack of slack cut from the fact of what we came back from after the vote with COVID, no fans, the financial ramifications. We're not getting any credit in the bank for having to come through that. And a lot of what's happened this season and whatever else, yeah.
It's also, I was speaking to someone who'd been a fan for years and years and years, and obviously prior to working at the football club, I was a fan as well. And you look at the context of this club's history, and it almost seems to be a sort of mentality whereby you're only looking, it only happened if it's on social media.
Yeah.
And that's, I suppose, the world that we live in at this moment in time, and people can't look back too far. It's like the Premier League. The Premier League started in 1992. Well, it didn't, did it? It
No.
just titled a name like that. So
yes, correct.
people need to probably understand
Yeah.
that they are living through a period of great success. And yes, there's going to be bumps in the
Of
road,
course.
but
It's like people say, well, maybe you shouldn't have got the promotion, you weren't ready. You can never say that. You can never ever say that. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can prepare for different eventualities, but you can never say, well, I don't want to go up as we're not ready. Everyone wants to be in the championship. We just didn't grasp the opportunity. It slipped through our fingers. It fell out of our hands. That's what it did. And a lot of it's down to us, of course it is. But a lot of it's also down to lady luck. You need lady luck in football. And our lady luck ran out. And, we're hoping to find lots more of that because we need it in the bank going forward. So, but it is what it is. It's part of history. I've been here 15 seasons. And is this my 4th season in the championship? I can't remember. It was 4th or 3rd? 2, 3, 4th.
Yeah.
4th. So, I don't know, like 25% of my ownership has been as a championship club. Not what I wanted. I wanted it to be well over half. But who knows? It could be in the end, The club's got to go again. It's got to go to title tilt and try and win a cup next year. It's been a while since the fans went to Wembley. So you got to look forward. And I guess when all is said and done, and the summer comes and the smell of summer is here and pre-season starts again, you have to get the juices flowing and the belief has to start flowing as well. And, you've had the shit kicked out of you as a club, but from there, you can only respond the best way you know. And that is by winning and scoring lots of goals and looking really good. And this football club's got some really talented players. It's got a lot of talent behind the scenes. It's got a great management team in place. It's got a fan base that are hungry for, let's not use the word vengeance anymore. We did that. They're hungry for a go again. And they missed the promotion last time because they weren't here. So maybe this time that will be the sweet side of the bitterness in this. That if we do a promotion again, the fans will be there for this one again. So that's got to be the aim for everybody at the football club.